Nation, where we are busy putting death out of business. And I tell you what, it's a scorcher here today. We're heading up to 40 degrees here in Melbourne. 40 degrees. For you people who work in Fahrenheit, you wouldn't even understand, but that's pretty hot. But to help us, through this scorcher of a day, we've got Dr. Turner, who's back. Thank you so much, sir. They're from Vancouver, Canada, the friendly nation, and you're being a very friendly person to us here at Det Nation. And of course, we got Benzion 2020, the man who's going for the Guinness World Record of a VR record, and we'll go into more of that as well. But to help us through, we're going to talk about social VR. Now, we did do another more conceptual. More broader VR, AR debate. We talked about simulated heavens, virtual reality, God. Are we just creations within creations? All this hypothesis. But I guess that's our own little thing now, because I kind of stuffed up the sound, so we'll all know that. You can go and watch it. If you can hear it, you can hear it. But that was pretty cool. Thank you so much for doing that, Ben and Dr. Turner. That was really, really fun. But we're going to lean into the more social element of VR. And, the social side of technology has been really interesting. I mean, we had, at the base, IT, right? Information technology. It's the internet is a transfer of data, of information. Even Alexander Graham Bell, right? The telephone. This is a transfer of vocal data. So, since the beginning of technological transfer, especially in the realm of electricity, we've been talking about the transfer of data. Facebook, WeChat, these messaging apps, Facebook, a social platform, Instagram, back in the day, we had MySpace, and these are kind of a 1.0, a different type of VR. But actually, social VR is very, very different. And here to introduce us to social VR, it's Dr. Turner. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Turner. Thank you very much for coming back on Det Nation, here where we can talk about social VR. And we've got a few different social VRs emerging, and we're only at the beginning of the emergence curve on this social stuff, because it's as you explained last time, is kind of a high barrier. You got to have a high barrier to entry on this social VR stuff, in the fact that you have to have good internet, you actually have to have the equipment. It's quite expensive as a whole barrier to entry. But we've got a few things here. We've got the Oculus with Facebook Horizon, VR Chat, which is a virtual world. We've got Sensor, and we've got open source. But you're the VR man. Tell us about social VR and what you want to explain to us, and we'll rock into each one of these differently across the spectrum of this chat. But thank you very much, firstly, for turning up. Is it a scorching day there, or are you covered in snow?
It's hardly a scorching day here, Steele. It's kind of damp a bit. It's technically, I guess it's turning into winter here. We're in the, the down upwards. No, you're the down under, so we're the other side. Anyway, kind of season here. In the virtual world, though, it can be as sunny as you want, especially if you are immersed within this world. So with social VR, it's like really yourself, your own body in a way. It feels like it is really you in some other place, interacting with actual people. It feels just like that, except it's in a computer graphics generated space. So it is very strange and surreal if you've never tried social VR before. It's surreal enough to try VR for the first time, trying any application or even video game, but it's another level to really meet people and explore worlds with people, and even just do almost mundane things with people, and yet you're in this surreal kind of dreamscape at the same time. So it's social VR is really this whole other level of interaction that's closer to our everyday real world interaction.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's more and more applications of social VR as well. We're talking about business as well, people conducting business, people meeting each other, and and dating, and there's more and more digital assets are becoming more and more valuable. This is something I wanted to talk to you about, and also I wanted to talk to you more about the fact that last time you said something really interesting, that when you came out of digital reality, you were looking at your hand, you were thinking you need to upgrade your processor. Actually, some stuff like that is actually keeping me up at night. I want to talk to you more about that, but. Ben Zion 2020, it's good to see you here back on the show. I want to ask you more about social VR, because we know you want to do a whole bunch of Guinness World Record stuff. Explain that, Guinness World Record stuff. And then also let's talk about some social VR. What do you see about social VR? Do you think of MySpace and Facebook and Instagram, or are you starting to think more about these, these Oculus Rift type horizon event horizons? We've got you up on the picture up there. You're calling in because you're on the road somewhere, but I don't know where you are. But you've obviously played with this technology.
Yes, quite a bit. And you mentioned some of these big tech platforms that we like to use today, and some of those guys. They might find themselves in a little bit awkward position in a few years, but some of them are also rolling out. Just moments ago, Jeremy and I were talking about having signed up for one of these companies' new beta test for a social VR, and they've had a few other iterations in the past that are of interest, and this one looks even more exciting. And we'll be seeing more and more of that, probably coming from unheard of competitors as well, who might rocket up into the stratosphere. And these are all exciting prospects, as is the prospect ultimately of a lifestyle of full immersion. For example, in augmented reality, this could be a not terribly counterproductive kind of lifestyle. We already know some folks quite well, you and I, who've spent some period of their working life and other times with Google Glass. And so this kind of thing is only going to be getting better as we have more and more useful augmented reality devices that will allow us to be living, but still living well as human beings, interacting with loved ones, going about our other important business, but also being able to have a more enhanced experience. And that is an incredibly exciting prospect. And that is a big reason for why I am doing this virtual reality Guinness Record Challenge. I will be breaking the Guinness record for virtual reality immersion, which stands at 42 hours and 42 seconds for gamers. And we also have an augmented reality challenge that we might do at around that time. So I may also set the bar for augmented reality immersion of this comprehensive kind, which of course we mentioned that folks are doing augmented reality to do it continuously, and also to provide the evidence to the Guinness organization is another matter entirely. And I am very much looking forward to this. I've had a fair amount of experience with both augmented reality and virtual reality. I do find virtual reality to be a little more jarring, but not so much as a good thing for all of us to be trying this.
Yeah, that sounds really, really fun. All right, so let's rock into it. So Facebook is a big player in the social world, in social media, this media idea, whether or not they're a platform or a public forum or whatever they are, social media. But they also have something called Facebook Horizons. They say here in the tagline, "Welcome to Facebook Horizon, an ever-expanding VR world where you can explore, play, and create in extraordinary ways. At Horizon, we're not just discovering a new world. You are part of what makes it great." Dr. Turner, what is Facebook Horizon? What does it mean for the social media landscape, social VR landscape?
Okay, well, Facebook Horizon is not quite out yet. There's an open beta they're opening up, I guess, in 2020, which is, I guess, coming right up. It's based on another social VR world that they just discontinued called Facebook Spaces. And Facebook Spaces has been around for a couple years. And I think it's going to be a very similar kind of world. So I'll explain what that is, at least the one I've tried. So with Facebook Spaces, you are a cartoon kind of avatar. It actually will do a bit of facial recognition based off a photo of yourself, like a selfie, and it will generate what they think is an avatar that looks like you, and then you can modify from there. And then once you're in there, you're a cartoon version of yourself, hanging out with other cartoon people. What's interesting about Facebook Spaces, and I'm sure Horizon will continue this, is that you can actually contact people in Facebook, that those people who are not necessarily inside of VR. So, for example, I did a video call with my friend in Mexico, and he didn't know that it was my avatar calling him on like a Skype-like video chat. Like Facebook has their own video messenger, right? And he was shocked. Like, there's this cartoon talking to him, And I can move around my arms and everything, and it lip syncs perfectly to my voice and everything. And I can walk around the virtual space and show him different things. And this is just like, but he's not in VR at all, but I am. Wow. So actually, it's a way for people in VR to contact socially outside of VR, and that's Facebook's biggest strength with regards to social VR, and I think they'll continue that for Horizon. There is a preview for Horizon you can watch right now, and it looks a lot like Pixar, Disney kind of that kind of approach to cartoonizing people. Definitely worth, at the very least, putting it as a link in the comment somewhere on this video, or possibly, if there's time, you might want to have a quick look on the show. But it gives you a hint as to the kind of world it will be.
I really did want to play this. I just don't want to muck up my sound. I wanted to preview it, but I'm kind of scared now. So I'll run that test with Ben Zion another day. But yeah, I agree. Oculus.com// Horizon. Check it out.
Facebook and Oculus have this collaboration that Dr. Turner has described, and that feature that you described of being able to have your avatar interacting in world with people through ordinary video calls. That's very useful to me, as I'm going to be conducting a lot of interviews, and not everyone might in those interviews might have the time or the inclination or the hardware to also become a virtual avatar and join me in virtual reality. So that is a nice feature, and I'm hoping that it'll be available. I did also, this is one that I have looked at very recently a little bit, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to have access to that one. That's very cool.
And there's a tab here. It says Citizenship. What do you think? Facebook is. It says, as citizens of Facebook Horizon, it is all of our responsibility to create a culture that's respectful and comfortable. Read about the tools we provide to control your experience. So there's this idea of a blockchain citizen or a Bitcoin world citizen, or a United Nations global citizen. We're going to be citizens of the Facebook Horizon. What do you reckon? Is that an adequate response? Do you think that people will take something like citizenship seriously?
I think so. I think that for one thing, this is I'm betting on it, because we are working on a blockchain citizenship feature for our integration with Apollo 1. This is we're gathering together a great number of micronation enthusiasts and other post-nationalists, so to speak, and we are inviting them to join this post-nation tile in the form of this blockchain citizenship that will be available on Apollo 1 in conjunction with the Futurist New Deal. And that is going to be available very soon, and we're going to be sending those invitations out sometime in the first weeks of January. So this is something that I believe in. I think that we need to be exploring other ways to decentralize many features of civil society insofar as that is possible, and in areas of governance, this is eminently possible. And so this could lead to many good things. To the extent that we are able and willing to do this in the near term, we will all be better off for it.
Dr. Turner, Facebook would already be the third or second largest behind India and China country on the planet if it was a country. We're on the beginning of this VR curve. Do you think citizenship is an adequate way to approach this sort of new experience for humanity? Do you like it?
Well, deep down, I like it. I'm a post-nationalist, is what Ben said. I think the Transhumanist Project is a post-nationalist project, ultimately. Mark Zuckerberg himself, I think, had ambitions maybe to be president of the United States, maybe your competitor, Ben. But he might even become like a global president one day. Who knows? Most of us here are in Facebook. Most people we know are in Facebook. It's brought most people together under some kind of unified. Like we connect now based on common interests more than we do in terms of our so-called national citizenship interests. And Facebook and other social media sites and also social VR have helped foster these kinds of considerations. It's really part of what Marshall McLuhan called a global village, where we're all interacting globally now. It's not simply American interests versus Canadian interests. Although now that we're seeing the impeachment proceedings right now, maybe American interests versus, say, Russian interests. Maybe that's something that is coming into play again. But since the Cold War, but in a way, though, I think I'm perfectly comfortable with a post-nationalist situation. I like the idea I can even have a say in terms of being a member of the United States Transhumanist-Party, even though I'm Canadian. You wouldn't think. I don't think I could do that for a Democrat or Republican Party in the U.S. At least not as far as I know, unless I was some kind of superdelegate or something. So all this inclusivity, I think, is really a part of the transhuman tradition in a way.
Fantastic, yeah. And I mean, with this notion of citizenship on Facebook Horizons, it's kind of interesting because if you don't want to do it, you don't have to sign up. That's the beauty of private companies. But again, censorship is the other issue. Dr. Turner, we know that fake news and censorship have been issues on social media in general. They're trying to, I'm reading here, they're trying to make these places safe spaces, essentially safe, inclusive spaces. What about ideas sharing? What about fake news? Do you see any of these issues rushing into this space? Do you think this is a new broadcasting mechanism for the for fake news and all this and hate speech and stuff like this? What do you think about these arguments, especially with Facebook Horizons?
So this is a touchy issue. I see people like Mark Zuckerberg and people that also run social VR businesses or companies, worlds. They're world hosts, which means they got to have. I think they have to be somewhat benevolent, and they also have to be, as they're kind of world leaders, right? Literally of worlds. Facebook's a global world community, and what Zuckerberg is trying to do, I think, is just represent. And I can't speak for him, but I think he's trying to be hands-off and try and represent different voices from around the world, including those that maybe he's against, personally. I could be wrong. Some people say he furthers a certain kind of agenda or a certain political thing or whatever. He has certain political allegiances. I'm not sure about that. But, there was a similar issue with this virtual world called Second Life, which was a screen-based virtual world back in the mid 2000, from 2003 until, well, I guess today. And the creator of this world, or the owner of this world, Philip Rosedale, he was accused of allowing, like Nazi sites to show up or child pornography sites to show up, like worlds to show up in this virtual space. And he was taking like a hands-off kind of thing, saying, I'm just hosting a world. What people do in this world is not my problem. It's almost like a deistic kind of God that sets up the world but doesn't want to meddle with it and just let all these voices figure it out for themselves. But of course, people that run these worlds are going to be politically implicated in everything that goes on within that world.
Yeah,
that's sort of an issue, right? So people like Zuckerberg, people like this guy Philip Rosedale, who did Second Life and is now doing the social VR world High Fidelity. I think, and any of these other people, I mean, they just want to host a world, and whoever's in that world, they don't want to necessarily be directly, personally responsible for. So this whole freedom of speech becomes a big issue, including voices that you might not like personally. There's this giant world arena of people having their own news, fake news, propaganda, whatever it is, and it's just a world forum. That's how I see it. That's how I want to see it. That's how I want to see a global transhumanist government, a very inclusive one, including voices that I completely disagree with. Where I think that line gets crossed is when people directly incite violence, and it's definitely they're planning, coordinating for that to happen, and like a terrorist kind of thing. Then I see that line being crossed. But in terms of debate or discussion, and people can make their own, I like the idea of people making their own news outlets. I like the idea of people having their own voices, having a plurality of voices. I like how a leader could be a bit hands-off and just say, well, this is your world. I'll just manage the efficiency of this world to keep it running, but otherwise keep kind of a hands-off from what goes on in this world. I mean, there's only so much they can do, though, because they are the hosts of this world. They are responsible for what, in a way, what goes on in this world, even if they're not directly trying to be part of what people are doing in that world.
Yeah, that's a complicated issue. Let's use that. That's a good segue into high fidelity. Let's move into high fidelity because you mentioned that. What's high fidelity, Dr. Turner?
So high fidelity is a social VR world. It's based, well, I wouldn't say it's based. The creator, as I said, Philip Rosedale, he's the guy that made Second Life back in the day. And then he left the company that made Second Life and he started his own more independent social VR world. And this world is high fidelity. So in this world, for example, what I find accessible about this world right now is that, for example, you can go into your phone, whether it's at least iOS, probably Android as well on the phone. There's an app that's free called Virtually You, and you can make an avatar that looks like you. It's based on a picture of you that you upload, kind of like with Facebook, and then makes a cartoon version of you. And then if you do go into social VR with high fidelity, you can become yourself in VR. And It looks quite good. It looks fairly realistic. Oh, I wouldn't say realistic because it's cartoonish in terms of its rendering, but it looks a lot like, I think you could do a version of yourself, Steele, and you could say, yeah, that looks like me, or at least an avatar version of me. And then you can go as yourself, fully embodied as the slightly cartoonish version of you in social VR. And this is what High Fidelity is doing, has been doing recently. But they've also had big concerts in this world. Thomas Dolby, he's a 1980s music icon. He wrote that song, She Blinded Me with Science, in the early to mid 80s. It was a hit back then when I was a kid. He was my childhood music idol. He had a massive music festival concert in this social VR space where there were, okay, this does not sound like a lot of people, but when you think about they're all in VR, there was about, 350 people all watching a concert in social VR with the actual guy using his avatar to literally sing and play live. It wasn't really canned. He was singing and playing live to an audience.
Wow.
And it's as if you're really there. It's like a Lollapalooza kind of festival. It's like you're really at a festival. It really felt that way. It was really strange.
Yeah, that's incredible. Have you had a chance to look at high fidelity, Benzion?
Yeah, a little bit. I've familiarized myself with some of these worlds. I was following closely Sanzar's. It was derived from the Second Life, and so I knew some of the developers who were working on that project. And so I have been following quite a few of these quite closely, and I'm looking forward more to having these be a larger part of my lifestyle. I think, and to some degree, that's a question of many platforms, which is how many applications and usages are ultimately there, how many users there are. That's a big reason why Minecraft VR is probably a little more popular than some other things that might have, in some ways, more colorful or realistic images or other kinds of more enhanced interactivity, because there is a pretty good group of folks doing that already in Minecraft, and it's not too difficult to switch back and forth. That's one that we didn't talk in either of these discussions. I don't think it's on our list for today, but I've enjoyed Minecraft. I used to be a curriculum developer for young people in STEM, and so I worked with Minecraft here and there, and Minecraft VR is definitely one that I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I just want to hit on this point of 350 people watching this concert. I thought that was pretty cool because I remember I read an article here. Fortnite's Marshmallow concert was the game's biggest ever event. And this is not quite High Fidelity or any of these guys, but it's the same sort of thing where more than 10 million people watched a virtual performance. 10 million. I mean, that's massive because the barrier to entry, as I mentioned at the start, is a lot lower for Fortnite, and it's a whole multi-billion-dollar game, and it's quite an established industry. But Milo is he's like the Skrillex, so yeah, he's one of these big superstar, rock star people. So it says here in the article, this is from The Verge. Now, this was taken, this article here, it was from The Verge by Eb Wester, February 21st, 2019. When Marshmallow took to the stage inside Fortnite earlier this month, it wasn't just a glimpse of the future, it was also the biggest moment in Fortnite's history. According to the developer Epic Games, 10.7 million people attended the concert, which tops the previous largest in-game event back in November, with 8.3 million people witnessing destruction of a strange purple cube. I'm not sure what that is either, but so yes, so the demand for virtual entertainment is rising rapidly. I don't think it's going to stop at 10.7. With, as you said, there's over 1 billion people connected on Facebook. You get one couple of % of that moving over into these. You're going to go from 350 to this 10 million marker, because this is where it wants to go. So you can see, so 10.7 million people, that's where it wants to go. So that's the ability to connect all around the world. Live music in actual venues is probably going to dry up. That'll become an archaic thing. Go and check out the, stages will disappear, and VR is the future. So I think it's a great thing. Honestly, I think this is a lot of fun. Sansar, Dr. Turner, Benzion mentioned Sansar.
Beautiful world.
What do you say about that? What's Sansar?
Well, okay, so let me just step back a bit. Second Life was that desktop-based virtual world. It was quite popular. It got up to, I don't know, I think a couple million people, which is quite a lot. I don't think it's at that level now. And around 2007, it was relatively trendy. Major news networks were talking about it. There was a lot of hype surrounding it until about 2009, then it kind of died off. But in terms of the hype, so there's a company that made Second Life called Linden Labs, and the creator or the owner, the CEO of Linden Labs, was a guy named Philip Rosedale, and he left his company. Okay, so he left his company to form High Fidelity, one of the social VR worlds. But the company made their own competitor called Sansar. So Sansar is the official Linden Labs approved or Linden Labs made social VR world, whereas High Fidelity is Philip Rosedale's personal social VR competitor.
Which has a bigger market share?
Well, Linden Labs is a bigger company overall. But High Fidelity was quite competitive with Sansar for a while. Neither of them, the future of either of them is a little bit tentative at the moment. Linden Labs, the company, has apparently downsized the staff for Sansar in recent weeks, or recent days perhaps. And High Fidelity, they made a statement. In fact, Rosedale made a statement that he's no longer going to actively support the social VR part of High Fidelity, which is a strange thing to say. So now he's making it available to more desktop users that don't need VR, but it's kind of strange, because then you ask yourself, why not just go to an older world like Second Life?
Yes.
So for me, it's a bit strange, because the big appeal for High Fidelity and Sansar was the immersive VR. That's the thing that's making them different and more contemporary. But VR is still supported by these worlds, but I guess they feel like there's just not enough people right now in these worlds, and that maybe they need money at the moment. So so maybe they're taking a pragmatic approach to the near future of social VR, but not the far future, I don't think.
Well, Ben mentioned a good point with Minecraft. I mean, Minecraft, anybody can play on any really computer. It's a very low resolution game. It's not that big. It doesn't take much to install. It's infinitely creative. I know Gennady Stolyav II, our champion there at the USTP, is a big Minecraft fan. He makes amazing works in Minecraft. Check that out. But also, things are coming back, like World of Warcraft. I noticed the user rate is climbing. RuneScape, which is a very old game, which peaked at 2008 and then it died off. It's starting to have an insurgence again. Yeah, there's older games that are coming back. People are discovering them and using them, utilizing them in new ways. that they haven't imagined before. And maybe, maybe they've just got some funding issues. Something like Facebook Horizons has Facebook in the background, so this is just a pet project of theirs. Whereas someone who's big in on the curve, again, that high barrier to entry does limit the amount of people. And if they put a cover charge on there, if you have to pay to play, it's going to even reduce the amount of people that can even jump into these worlds even more. Are any of these worlds pay to play, Dr. Turner? Do you have to pay, or are they all free to play?
All the ones I'm talking about right now are free to play. They're trying to get it to a point, kind of like the downloadable content model, where it's free to play, but then if you want customized avatars or customized objects or whatever, or they're starting to introduce an economy into some of these worlds. Sansar is pushing to commercialize their platform once it leaves beta, I guess. And High Fidelity had a marketplace, but not all of them have necessarily commercial ends in mind. If we talk about, there's a do-it-yourself independent social VR world, which I'm quite fond of, called Neos. That's out of the Czech Republic. And that one is really literally one guy making everything for this world. And it's, but you can build inside the world socially. And it's becoming more and more intuitive in this world. And that's something, I don't see the guy necessarily having much in the way of commercial ambitions right now. Maybe later he will. But not all of them have a marketplace intact. In fact, High Fidelity, but this is funny, High Fidelity actually has a bank inside of the social VR world. And you can actually go into their bank and line up in a bank lineup for your teller. And a teller is someone who works for High Fidelity, sitting down, but his avatar is sitting down behind the desk. You can go and manage your money with an actual teller there.
What, like High Fidelity credits or real credits?
Yeah, they're called High Fidelity credits or High Fidelity coins, HFCs. And apparently, I don't know the true technical details necessarily. I believe these coins are based on an Ethereum blockchain, but I'm not totally sure on that.
Yeah, cool.
But yes, so you can earn coins. You get actually, for a while they had a welfare system, like a universal basic income. So because I was an early adopter, I got some coinage that way. I got some starter coins. So
cool.
I didn't get. I don't think I got monthly credit, but
Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess it would be a good place, these social VR worlds, to test out social theory. Because like we mentioned last time, the physics are different and things like that. But you've got such a wide diversity. You've got such a diversity of people and players. I mean, if you wanted to implement, someone comes up with a social theory and you implement it into that world to watch the behaviors, you can stop messing around with the real world and doing social experiments. Do you think that's a thing, Dr. Turner? Do you think these people do social experiments?
Well, I'm sure they do social experiments, and they're also collecting the data from you much more easily than they would outside of a place like VR. A virtual environment is a very controlled, deterministic environment. In some ways, there's some things that parameters are set and can be recorded much easier than they can with surveillance technologies, for example, data collection technologies in the so-called real world. It's a much more, So yeah, I'm sure that's going on. I'm sure that's some of the interest for some of these players in this space. Absolutely. Facebook would definitely be one of those players. I mean, having said that, if you're going to sign up to join Facebook's virtual world, you've probably already signed away your soul signing up for Facebook to begin with. So you might as well at least get the perks and benefits from having done that already. So, yeah.
One thing that was interesting, we were talking before the show about using flash mobs in this kind of unique social space with augmented reality. We were talking a moment ago about sandboxes, which are, this is a feature of, I believe, of Minecraft, is that you can also use it with HoloLens and HoloLens 2. This is an interesting kind of thing to be able to have all manner of superimpositions and applications imposed upon the real world, rather than it creates a wholly different landscape than this locked-in situation in world. What are your impressions of those kinds of phenomenon, Dr. Turner?
Sorry, which kind of phenomenon? Just step back a minute.
Sorry. These augmented reality in uses for social VR, or augmented reality uses for the sandbox, other things with augmented reality in the space.
Well, as I probably mentioned, I think on the previous episode, and what I tend to say generally is that I think AR and VR are converging as a technology into one kind of synthetic reality space, a true mixed reality space between this actual so-called actual world and the virtual cyberspace world. And there won't be much difference between going inside and outside of these spaces. And so whatever we talk about in terms of the future of social VR, I think we're going to be talking about the same kind of thing and the same kinds of considerations for either.
And you know, it's in a limited way, I'll be using this combination of augmented and virtual reality in my Guinness record because I will, for part of this experience, have people assisting me, but perhaps not the whole time. So I will at some point probably switch to this rendering of the room that I am in virtual reality that will allow me to have some limited mobility should I need to acquire a sandwich or something on my own. So I might have this I will certainly be experiencing this very real convergence there between augmented and virtual reality.
Yeah, that's really funny. I think that's hilarious. But yeah, no, good luck. And it is kind of converging. And the topics we talk about here as well, going towards the singularity, it's all converging. So I'm not surprised to hear that VR and AR are also coming down to coming together and working closer together and becoming more confusing. Do you think this is the beginning? Next step of evolution where people will have to, let's say simulation theory is real for a second. Let's hypothesize that it doesn't matter so much about this reality, whether or not it's the base reality. But as our consciousness now, do you think we're going to get to a point? And right now, it's not so hard to choose because, like say for example, the Facebook Horizons is very cartoonish, so it's very easy to to notice if I'm in this reality or if I'm in Facebook. In the Horizons reality, it's easy to say, well, I'm in either one. But there's obviously going to be more and more realistic worlds coming, especially as AI comes to the rescue and starts to assist in that where it will be very hard to distinguish whether or not you're in a virtual space or in this so-called reality. Now, there was a movie about this. It was called The Matrix, and there was another one called Inception as well. And do you think we're at the beginning of an evolutionary curve on a singular idea where there will be almost pathways, almost doors? It's like when you start a video game and it says which character do you want to be, which clan, which way. I mean, are we going to enter this because those worlds will create those worlds, and if you pick a development path, we're gonna run with that. Do you think this is the start of your choice now will impact your future selves down the line, like however far you can go, Dr. Turner?
Yes, no, but I see it as all of this will be a training for also a post-scarcity future, some kind of other kind of it's a cyber future what we're entering. If you go into these social VR spaces right now, especially the ones that are looking quite realistic, already, and you realize people can just teleport naturally, they can change their appearance. When you start getting used to that, it's like it's training our culture to also accept this coming situation in our possible future, where we can start using things like nanotechnology to literally change materials and change appearances and then it won't be so weird to our culture anymore. It's almost like a training. This is like real simulation in a way. This is training for this new future we're entering, this new synthetic kind of post-human future, and that will become probably our mundane future at some point. What does that mean philosophically? Well, it holds a mirror back to ourselves and makes us rethink what the ultimate reality is, perhaps even more, or we'll just all take it all for granted and not think in terms of simulation versus reality anymore. That might not even be a question for people in the younger generations. They might say, this is reality. All of this is reality, because that is all we know and what we experience every day in a mundane way. So maybe it's only us who have been exposed to the idea of lesser worlds not being as good as ours, that for us it's a philosophical interest to us.
Yes.
To us right now. But in the future, it might be just mundane, right? Taken for granted, maybe.
And that future may not be so far off. It was not very long ago that Dr. Turner and I were musing on some recent developments in the real world that are changes to the way that changes in technology that are leading us closer and closer to recursive self-improving algorithms. Not a concept that is merely a science fiction concept anymore. And so we may very well see in that reasonable time frame where we are personally making some determinations about whether we are in some kind of ancestor simulation, because we now have a little more information at our disposal, or maybe we are at the very least able to be generating fully realized metaverses of the truest kinds because of dramatic improvements in advanced algorithms. I do, gentlemen, regret that I have to drop off the call now. I have another appointment at 6 o'clock, but it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Dr. Turner and Steele. Of course, my friend, I'll see you both again soon.
Thank you very much, Ben Zion. Thank you. Always a welcome addition to the show. Thank you very much, and safe travels.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Ben. Safe travels. Good hanging
Incredible
out.
chat. Yes, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Ben.
See you in VR.
See you in VR.
See you there.
All right, that's Ben Zion, everyone. That's Ben Zion 2020. Make sure you check out Ben Zion 2020. Now, we've just got Dr. Turner here. We're still talking about VR, simulated realities, all the different social VR aspect of VR. Dr. Turner, so, yeah, there's lots of great points there, and this Minecraft thing is really interesting. But something else you said, it's kind of interesting, is the value. Now, I was gonna play this off to Ben because he's running for president. I thought it'd be fun to talk to him. But do you think the jobs, the relative esteem of jobs in this world is collapsing? Like, it's pretty cool to be the president, but it's also not really cool because you also got a lot of stress to maintain these digital worlds. Like, when you could go off and you could rule 10 million lands, or you could have millions of friends, and you don't have all that like, is it worth it? Like, is this VR stuff collapsing the value of high stress power jobs in this world, or whatever? Like, because in this post-scarcity future that you can envision through these worlds, or you can teleport, or you can morphological freedom, or you can fly around in jetpack, or you can do whatever you want essentially within the set parameters, and sometimes even outside of those, because I noticed one you sent was VR chat. I think is the VR chat where you can actually change and augment your own avatars and stuff. I mean, isn't this stuff more fun than being the president? Isn't this more fun than, is there jobs changing on the outside because this stuff is starting to take over?
I think that will be the case more and more so. Many of us are still, I won't say trapped, but many of us are still having to deal with the biological world in some way. We haven't totally gone into the synthetic reality sort of world space yet, to the point where we take it for granted yet. It's still a power trip, I think, to be a president. I'm all for Ben being one, though. Of all the people, he's the one I would like to see as an American president.
Him or Zoltan, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of any Republican I'd like to see, it would be Zoltan. Yeah. But people do establish their own sense of purpose in these virtual worlds as well. There will be people that want to be a news reporter, in a social VR world. You don't have to be. You could be anything more fantastical than a news reporter. No, nothing against news reporters, you know. But I mean, you can, yeah, see, but, but I mean, you might, for example, want to go in there and you might want to be a news reporter. There's someone there was working as a bank teller. There's someone that works there as a security guard for a show. They're almost volunteer jobs. Like, they don't have to do this anymore, and yet some people still want a sense of purpose in there, even if it seems mundane. Like, it's kind of strange. Now, I don't know if that's a temporary thing, because maybe we haven't really experienced this post-scarcity kind of life yet. And younger generations, you know, like my generation's Generation X, we grew up. Well, I grew up in a recession in the 1990s in Canada. I grew up lining up for, you know, like a McDonald's type job, and there's 100 applicants before you just to even get that one cashier job. It was almost like not quite the Great Depression. I wouldn't say it's that extreme, but it was a lot of joblessness. And just to get a job gave you some purpose because there was so much competition for it, even the most mundane of jobs. And I don't know if my generation still thinks that way. Like, we were denied what you might call a real job. Like, one of my greatest pieces of satisfaction is to be a professor or a PhD doctor. Do you need a PhD anymore? I mean, and certainly in this future world, this near future world, do we need people with doctorates? And we've got the mind uploading, you know, with all the PhD information. How meaningful is it to have the degree? How meaningful is it to have a title? Right now, it's still meaningful to a lot of us. I mean, I'm taking it you'd like to be a news reporter right now. I'd like to be a professor, doctor kind of person right now. When will this wear off, where we kind of get bored of these roles? I don't know. I assume different roles in different social VR spaces, though. I've acted as a certain kind of person in one VR space and then another kind of person in another space. And then, of course, in this biological world, I'm this kind of person here. And sometimes it bleeds over. Sometimes there's overlap. Like in this high fidelity world, you go to your phone, you're making a version of you, basically. And also in Facebook, your name is above your head as a name tag. So you are you. At least that used to be the case in Facebook for Facebook Spaces. So it's hard to be someone else if they're making you still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, you know, to be a security guard in a post-scarcity world. But you know, if you look at a lot of the, you know, I showed a game last time. I forgot what the name of that game is now, but you know, there's security guards in that, and you can do the same thing. And people who, you know, talk about armor all the time, or people who sell ships, or and by the way, you know, I'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, it's just super interesting because, like, if you like, what is the future of the world if this stuff really continues to if we because everybody, you walk down the street and everybody's looking at their phone. But it's not really new, because if you walk down the street in the 1950s, everyone was reading the newspaper, or, you know, because we're information machines. That's what humans are. We're information-based, cognitive, you know, machines. That's what we like to do. But, you know, it's just like, is the future just a room, a giant warehouse where we're all lying on a bed, simulated, going into a reality, and the president of that room is just some guy who's just monitoring, or it's just an AI who's just monitoring the health vitals of everyone while everyone has a great time down there? Is that the sort of future? I mean, you know, while robots go out to the I mean, what's the point of space and travel and you know, going to other places if everybody's just going to have a great time down there? So you can spend a billion years, or you can just go until the sun burns out and use that energy up, and then, I don't know, maybe shift the way over and have a computer working out in the background, you know, figuring that out. I mean, is that the future? Is that what the future looks like? It's just a warehouse full of people on a bed.
Well, okay, so immersive VR is about retreating into some cyberspace world, right? Sitting on the couch or just you know, escaping from this world. Whereas augmented reality is overlaying things on top of this world. The synthetic realities will be a bit of both, where you can either be on the couch, as you said, or engage in an embodied way, like this kind of world, or literally the same world. But it's interesting in terms of the AI thing you speak of, because I think it might allow people becoming more comfortable with cohabiting with AIs once they get better, and once the playing field between us ontologically has been kind of leveled out. So, for example, I find this really interesting. Is last year there was a post on, or a bunch of posts, a YouTube channel called Tutorial Bot, and what it was is it's a long story a little bit, but there's this esports VR world which you can use in the Oculus called Echo Arena. Okay, it's coming out to the Quest Mobile soon too, but people play you probably know that movie Tron, where they're throwing discs at each other. And in this case, it looks like that. It looks like a Tron world, and you're throwing discs at each other. But in this lobby space, there's a person that I think is pretending to be an AI in this space. In fact, it's not even clear if it's really an AI or someone pretending, like role-playing as one. That's kind of a trolling prank kind of idea. But if you were to look at the videos, the people that are immersed in this virtual world are impressed by the AI's intellectual capabilities, on the one hand, but they're still not sure. Like, part of them thinks, is this actually a human just tricking us? Or is this, maybe the AIs are actually getting good, so they actually didn't know.
It's a Turing test.
It is a Turing test. It absolutely is. And so when, I've gone to VR chat, and I was hanging out with this anime character, right? This Japanese anime character, but she had a synthetic voice, which is not a big deal, right? But that, normally in the synthetic voice, you would have to type out everything you want to say, and then it would read out that voice, right? But in VR, you don't have a chance to go type something down. Like, I would see them type something down. So I'm hanging out with this anime character, and she's talking very fluently with me using a synthetic voice, like a Stephen Hawking kind of synthetic sort of voice, but answering everything I'm saying. And then I was beginning to wonder, is this an AI? Is this someone that's made an AGI, like the ultimate super intelligence, or at least a human level intelligence? And this is like a place to do that kind of Turing test on people to see if they notice. Yeah, I didn't know. Like, honestly, I study AI and AGI, and I'm beginning to wonder, maybe someone secretly made an AI or AGI lab and are starting to plant these anime characters in this social VR world and see what people make of that. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, are you familiar with US 6 series, Tom Ross down here, this one? Are you familiar with Tom Ross?
I'm not, sorry. No.
He's a gentleman on here, USTP officer. He's got this book, the US 6 series, which we support, tomross.com. Go and check it out. And the guy's written a book for superintelligence, for AGI, and it's partly for humans, but partly for AGI as well. And he has basically a lot of knowledge about where these guys are. So I'll contact him for you, because he knows the big players and the big hitters on some of the most advanced AI and what they're doing, and he feeds his books into those AIs. And I would not be surprised at all if what you're saying is true. This is some sort of testing ground for, or it's a AGI that's starting to try and learn on its own, or using it as it's AI's. We don't know that's the problem with AI. We don't know a lot about what AI actually wants to achieve, and maybe it's figured out that this is a really easy way to squirm its way in, to interact with what it perceives as human-based intelligence, emotional intelligence. It wouldn't, because what happens with emotions on these worlds? Do people lose their? Do people, are they hotheads, or are they, people okay, or are they generally placid, or what happens with human emotions in these worlds? And let's say there was a tension point that something tipped. How do people react differently in there than the screaming neighbor next door in reality? What happens with human emotions in these worlds?
Well, in social VR, when you're embodied in this space, that means kind of your body's there too, which means it makes you, unlike a video game with a screen or these screen-based virtual worlds, unlike that, you feel a bit vulnerable in a social VR world. Like someone came right up to you, you'd feel like they're in your face. So that's one thing going on. And so, like, for example, let's say you're a live performer, right, in these spaces. I would be just as nervous playing to these avatars in the social VR space as I would in the real world. Whereas, what's his name, Marshmallow in Fortnite, he probably walked away from his computer to use the washroom and didn't feel that nervousness. No one would have noticed. Played an animation, played some cam music in, and just walked away. I don't know if that's really what that DJ did, but it would be easy enough to do in something like Fortnite, right? But whereas in this one, people see your body movements, that you're there. If you leave, people know you're gone, right? Unless you make an AI that replicates what you're doing, and then you can trick people that way. So what I find is that at least for me, I get more self-conscious, more nervous when I'm in there. When I was in Second Life, I was much less inhibited. I would say things I wouldn't normally say and not worry about it too much, or I would do those kinds of things in Second Life more. In social VR, I'm afraid what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. I feel like there's actual consequence there, where there wasn't the same kind of consequence before. And certainly in text chat, there's so many people trolling each other. Some people trolling each other because there's no feeling of consequence, really.
Yeah.
Right? You can just walk away from your computer. So there's that going on. But also, for some people, it does lower their inhibitions. So if VR chat, for example, there are a lot of people acting like they're drunk. Maybe they are. But they're acting like they're a bit intoxicated, and they just kind of would do maybe they wish they could always do and never felt they had the confidence to. So for some people, it does the opposite of what I'm talking about. For me personally, it makes me more self-conscious, a bit more shy than I would be in a world where I didn't have to literally, physically kind of show up.
Sure. Yeah, that's super interesting, and because human emotions, human intelligence, it's crazy. But so you're basically saying it's a more intimate experience than text chat, because Facebook has tried through personalization, or MySpace or whatever, have tried through personalization to make it feel as intimate as possible as you can, when you're interacting with a 2D image, essentially. And this 2D image has consequences. People who don't, take the other 2D image of whoever you're talking to on the other end of the screen seriously will very quickly have real-world consequences on whatever level, on a family level, a relationship, business, or other. But in these VR worlds, I guess it's more intimate, probably because of the high barrier to entry at the moment and the low usability rate. Probably the stakes are still lower. So we're probably not going to have a good analysis on how it is as a mass social idea until there's more participants. But that doesn't mean anything, because a group of 6, you're not gonna, is still a very good sample across what we're talking about. A sample of six people talking in a circle and interacting in a circle isn't going to be different if there's 1 million people or 100,000 or 1,000. I mean, only slightly. Only slightly, because the small group dynamics are usually fairly interesting anyway, and they're fairly easy to talk about. So it's a more intimate experience. It's more quote unquote consequence, to what you do, but the real world impacts are not quite as prevalent. So people do go a little bit. But that's the same. That's what they used to. That's what any first movie usually does, because the stakes are always lower. Especially and when a world starts to die and go in the reverse, that's what happens as well. As people leave a game and there's less players, then people start to muck around because the economy starts to collapse. There's no one there to care, and there's no real consequence and people start to fake who you are or whatever, and the person taking it serious becomes the dud, I guess, because everyone sort of makes fun of them because there's no one else around to look. But yeah, high populated worlds like we're looking at, VR chat, Facebook Horizons, all these others. So what's the future? Do you see a bright future for social VR? Is it because you like you got me real worried. You're talking about the companies, jivvying around with the idea, maneuvering because of money or because of identity or because of population or whatever their idea is. But on the whole, is that just news talk? Is actually the trajectory going up?
Well, I would be worried about projecting my own personal interests in VR, social VR, as to trying to give some indications as to the state of where it's going. I want it to succeed. It's something I like a lot. What the reality is in terms of right now, social VR has not caught on yet due to this accessibility barrier. People like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, are pushing pretty heavily for social VR right now. In his latest speech at Oculus, he was really, and in his Facebook, his recent Facebook announcements, he's pushing for social VR. He really sees the potential in it. Is he the kind of person that can get everyone else kind of interested on a mass scale? We don't know. I think, though, by the time social VR takes off culturally, I think AR is already there as well, right with it. So in near term, I think social VR is going to still be a fringe thing for a little while longer. Despite me wishing it were otherwise, VR chat does have people in the thousands. They have probably a few million in their user base, I think. That's pretty good. But these other worlds, like Sansar, you only see tens of people, really, not like thousands of people. But we'll see. It's early days, right? The internet did not have many users to begin with. Just a few rock stars had them, back in the 90s, just for hype reasons. And then now it's millions of people, so almost everyone.
Something I've been wanting to talk about the whole time, which I keep forgetting, but the value of digital goods is slowly going up. People for the space one I showed you last time, forgot the name completely, but people pay $1,000 for a ship on there. So you buy the ship, or you can earn it by doing tens of or hundreds of hours of gameplay. So you might as well just buy it, and if you have the money, digital goods are going up. And right now, the baby boomers who are in charge around the world, you're Gen X, so you would have been lining up because, the economic theory is the baby boomers built out a lot of these jobs, but then they maintained the jobs, and Gen X got screwed by, they weren't allowed to, they found it very hard to get promotions because these baby boomers would go to the top and they would just sit on these jobs forever and stuff, even though they made a lot of jobs, but they also sat on the jobs. And so Gen X was really the one caught in the middle between their kids, who they're passing all the jobs on to, and the millennials and the baby boomers who made those jobs and sat on those jobs, from middle management all the way up to CEOs. Gen X has had a really hard time. And it's a really small demographic as well. It's a small population, but the value of digital goods is going up. And I think baby boomers are very much this simulation, this reality. They're out there busy building buildings and doing things in this world, whatever they're doing. The millennials are much more interested in Bitcoin and cryptos, and they're digital natives, as they call them. I'm thinking, do you think that after this sort of allocation of capital, like, for example, we're seeing VR and social VR pop up in this sort of time zone, but I mean, once time moves on and once all these digital natives really start to get all that money starts to flow down, and the economy reorientates to digitalization, it's happening, but happening under a slower pace of the fact that a lot of the digitalization is being orientated towards efficiency metrics in the real world. That's why Alibaba does so well. That's why eBay did so well, and even Facebook and stuff, because it's orientated towards real interactions. Do you think that like once that shift happens, you might see a huge boom in the digital economy, including these VR spaces?
Well, I think so. For example, my son, he's a teenager right now. He spends all of his disposable income, his allowance, on downloadable content for a video game, League of Legends. So he'll save up for that. There's nothing really so-called physical about that. It's just a skin for his avatar character. He'll spend tons of money. He'll save up. He'll spend like when he can, like $30 a pop on like a couple new skins or a couple new abilities unlocked, or and that's for a 2D screen-based game, mind you. You can imagine like when things become part of this world even more, and where we're, in this synthetic reality future, what we might see all aspects of society being mediated by this technology, whether it's not just game players and people wanting to have fun in VR kind of places, but also the financial system, the banking system, the government. The bureaucracy will even maybe be mediated by some of this synthetic reality technology. And so people will just get used to that as a way of doing things. Maybe they'll take it for granted. Maybe it will be something like that. And then maybe in terms of the financial things, just paying something through some digital coin, some crypto coin maybe, or something off some kind of crypto like blockchain kind of idea, then yeah, you can see that. You can see a gig economy emerging this way and all sorts of things. Yeah.
A gig economy where you go and do jobs inside of VR for people. Yeah, that's so yeah, it really, yeah, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about this idea of the Turing test, whether I'm an AI or not. No, I haven't actually been. Oh, I have kind of thought of that, but you don't know in this reality what games people have been playing, because it's when you talk about robots and stuff, you have to think in terms of, with robots, there's a lot of high tech robots that are now really old technology, so it's going really fast. And digitalization, yeah, it opens up very interesting arena to the exploration of the universe, because we want to know what's going on in this reality, but people are going to create, and AI will create very interesting worlds that are outside of the context of these physical limits, that will have that dopamine reward for discovering seemingly easier, but at the same time more complex problems. It's going to be interesting. So we'll see this clash of science, of these VR scientists versus these reality scientists, where the reality scientists will be saying, no, it's this world that matters, and we have to we have to work out black hole science for this world. But they say, well, but what about that one? That's also equally as interesting, and the math in there is even better. And yeah, it's just crazy. Dr. Turner, and I'm very happy for you. With you being happy with your doctorate as well, your PhD. I think that's a fantastic thing. I myself was going back to uni at some point as well. Uni is a great thing. I think it's fantastic. I want to continue with geopolitics. I like geopolitics. But anyway, all right. Thank you, Dr. Turner, from Vancouver, Canada. A not hot Vancouver, Canada.
Not very hot, not except in VR. It's quite warm there, but not in this reality. It's not too warm. Thanks so much, Steele, for having me on the show and with Ben.
And thank you for you doing this again with us. Absolutely invited back anytime you want. Bring any other guests you want. Send us VR people or whatever. It's been extremely great experience and a lot to think about in terms of this reality and other realities. And thank you, Ben Zion 2020, for coming on the show, talking about your Guinness World Record. What do you think about his Guinness World Record attempt? Do you like it?
Sure, I like it. In fact, there was someone. Dr. Cardenas did work in VR where she immersed herself as a dragon character for I think it was 24 hours straight.
Cool.
I don't know if that was a world record, but at the time, but that's full immersion though, as a dragon, going around like a dragon.
That's
in
pretty cool.
Social VR kind of space. Actually, I think she may have modified Second Life for VR at the time. This is a few years ago, like maybe a decade ago now. But I'm sure it'd be great if Ben can crack a record like that. So
Yeah, he better do it now
2020,
because
so-
he better do it now because I'm sure that there'll be people coming who are going to smash that for days and weeks at a time. So he better do it now while the door is open, because I think there'll be other people who will live there or something. But yeah, so that's that. I think it's great. We're trying to prove that transhumanism can go across all broad spectrums, from life extension to VR to space technologies, visiting all sorts of to the environment, everything. So we're trying to keep all these ideas in focus. So I think this VR thing is really exciting. And there's a few different animals. Dragons are another one. Cats and dogs and dragons, they always keep popping up. Is there an animal in VR that, apart from cats and dogs and dragons, that is quite popular?
Well, the creator of Neo's VR, the one from the Czech Republic, he's a fox.
Ah, fox.
I guess you said other than dogs. Did you say other than dogs? Never mind.
Well, dogs and cats and dragons, I find common human.
Yeah, I guess that's fox. Okay. And there's a lot of people that look like some alien creatures that.
So they're inventing their own.
Oh yeah. In fact, what's interesting in that Neo's world I just told you about, except for the main guy who's a fox, the guy who made it, there are a lot of other people that dress up as this weird kind of species of alien. I'm one of them in there. And but I don't know what species that's supposed to be. It's some alien species, maybe unique, maybe native to this social VR world. So maybe there's a name for that species I don't even know of. But anyway, yeah. So we're seeing the creation of new kinds of species, maybe that are just part of cyberspace.
Yeah, absolutely. Cyberspace species. All right, Dr. Turner, thanks so much. Fantastic. Benzion 2020 as well. It's really, really, really good to talk to you. And thank you for all your inputs, and thanks for doing this again. You're the best.
Thank you very much, Steele.
Detonation.